This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, April 11th show. My goal is to keep you up to date on the latest news and trends in our local economy. Keep me tuned in, and I will definitely keep you informed. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. But if you'd like to talk with any of the guests that I have in studio today, you can call the show at 1-855-400-1150, 1-855-400-1150, and I will definitely connect you with them. You can also always go online at themoneyhour.com. So if you've missed any of my earlier part of the show, definitely go online because it's a great lineup today. And right now in studio, Greg Benson with Keller Williams Realty, Bellevue. Greg, first time in studio and excited to have your expertise in the real estate arena. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited too.
A little bit about Greg. Greg is May 1st will be Greg's 10-year anniversary. Isn't that awesome? So 10-year anniversary for Greg, 20-year anniversary for me, and 30-year anniversary for Greg, our CPA, or our tax guy. So fun day. And if he specializes on the east side in Lake Washington, but has done many transactions on the Seattle side. He has experienced and survived both buyer and seller markets, giving him the knowledge and expertise to successfully deal with any negotiation scenario. He's been part of his office and board of directors 6 out of the 10 years in his business. Although 60% of his business, around 60% of his business is working with buyers, he knows what it takes to get a home ready for sale, get it sold quickly, and maximize your dollar as a seller. His days on the market are half of the NWMLS average, and he gets his clients just over 100% of the listing price. Pretty spectacular. This means that he guides his sellers to do the right thing on their home and list it for the right price, and I think that's key in the process of working with sellers. These stats earned Greg a position on the board of listing agents to train other agents around the area. On top of that, being a leader in his office, he's also a trainer to agents not only in his office, but all over our local area here. So Greg, again, I'm just so excited to have you in studio. And in real estate, in any real estate market, you really have to work with the best of the best, but especially in this market. And what I wanted to talk with Greg about today to share with my listeners is winning in a multiple offer scenario without being the highest price offer. How in the heck do you do that, Greg?
Well, it's not easy. It's always you're always fighting with other buyers out there, and it's a lot of competition. But having the right team around you, having the right mortgage professional to guide you with the best loan. That there are some loans out that are more attractive to sellers than other loans.
Yes.
So those are just a couple things.
We're gonna share all of his special techniques that he has. And why don't we go ahead and start out, Greg, with a little bit about what's happening in our market right now and the condition of it. Can you share that with my listeners?
Yeah, right now we're in what we call a seller's market. Sellers have the negotiating power, and it makes it tough for buyers. So at this moment right now, it seems like there's more buyers than there are homes available for sale out there.
Yep.
And for many buyers, you're competing against 2, 3, 4, 5 other buyers on one property.
So there's always a buyer's or a seller's market. It's never, we're never in a buyer and seller market. It's an either or. So in the market that we're right now, where it's a seller's market, what other things are different in that market than if we were in a buyer's market? So what are the difference between the two of them, Greg? Well,
the difference is in a seller's market, the sellers have negotiating power and the inventory is low. Mm-hmm. And the buyer's market, usually there's a lot of inventory. Buyers come in with the negotiating power.
And what are about some of the challenges? Because I think it's frustrating for buyers, especially with the lack of inventory, and that's a really big issue that we're dealing in our local market right now. And buyers get frustrated, and I always tell them it's just not to give up. I mean, you're going to get a home, you just have to keep fighting the fight, and you've got to really be prepared. So how do you? Because you're just amazing at what you do, and the buyers, and I've had the privilege to be able to work side by side with you with some of your buyers that you've introduced to me, and I know that you're really helping them through this negotiation process. So what are some tips that you talk about with your buyers? I'd love you to share those with my listeners here on the show.
Yeah. You always want to make sure that you're prepared before you go and start looking at properties. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing is to build a good team around you, get yourself pre-approved for financing. Then make sure that your agent knows what you're looking for so they can find you or help you find the right property.
Okay.
And prepare you with setting expectations, what type of market we're in. Expectations like, chances are if you find a home that you like, chances are somebody else likes that home as well.
Yes.
And we're not out there in this market to find out how much we can get off on the price of the property, but what we need to do to get that property.
And I think that's so important, Greg, and having that conversation with buyers. And it's just a warning to you with buyers if you're not having a long conversation with your realtor exactly on what's happening with this market, because it's a strategy, and you have to understand what's happening, what you can and you can't do. And so if you're not having that conversation, you need to pick up the phone and have that conversation with the realtor to make sure that you understand what market you're in.
Right.
Now, what are some techniques that you're using to help your buyers actually beat out all of these buyers? Because I'm sure anybody that's in the market right now knows that you're in a multiple offer scenario, which means that you're not going in and you're not the only buyer out there, but you're dealing with and competing with other buyers. So what are some techniques that you're using to make it special for you?
Make sure that the buyer has the most attractive loan possible to the seller.
Okay.
Another technique is I definitely communicate heavily with the listing agent. Try to find out as much information as I possibly can. Ask questions like the motivation of the seller. Why are the sellers selling their property? What do they plan on doing after they sell?
Okay.
Is closing date important? This kind of stuff. So these are some of the techniques I use. When you find out the right information, you can adjust your offer. And you can also ask about other offers too. Some agents will give you the information, some agents won't.
Yes.
So when you find out that stuff, if you have an agent that spills it and basically lets you know everything, that's fantastic for you. I also like to wait till just a few, like an hour or less before the listing agent's expecting offers or going to go over offers.
Okay.
And I give one last phone call to the listing agent to find out if anything's changed.
Okay.
And then I adjust my offer if I have to, and then send it over.
That's awesome. And you can win in a market without having the highest price offer. And I think a lot of buyers just they don't realize that it really is about, and reputation has a lot to do with it as well, Greg, right?
Yes.
I mean, on the lending side and the real estate side, because just remember that real estate agent that's representing the seller, they are coaching and helping the seller. They're not making a decision, because ultimately it's the seller's decision which one of these 7 offers they want to take. But they've hired that listing expert for a reason, because they trust their opinion. And so the reputation of the realtor on the other side can make or break that process. I heard somewhere, and I don't want to say that this is definitely the statistic, but statistics show that 30% of offers don't close on time, and not closing at all. So it's a huge deal in the strength of that offer. Correct, Greg?
Oh, absolutely. That's very important to the sellers to make sure that a lot of good seller or listing agents will call the mortgage professional you're working with to make sure that they are reputable, and to find out if they can close on time, because a lot of times closing is super important for the sellers. Yeah,
and again, like Greg said, just getting an idea of what's important to the seller and what they're trying to accomplish is huge. Now, obviously, there's no 100% guarantee on the techniques that are being used or the strategy that you're going in with that you're going to get that home, correct? Yeah, we never know. Sometimes what's important to one seller might not be important to another. And even after asking all those questions, the bottom line might just be, money is the most important thing. Yes. And then you have to adjust your offer, and maybe you have to be the highest priced. So what are you doing with escalation clauses? So let's talk. First of all, can you explain that to my listeners on what an escalation clause is? Yeah, I describe it as the same way as if you guys shop on eBay. If anybody shops on eBay or does a blind bid on a item at an auction, some sort of auction. On an escalation clause, you put down your initial offer price. If the house is $300,000, you put down $300,000. You find out what your buyer's willing to go up to. If that's $305, $310, $315, and then you can go up in increments of $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, and the escalator gets pushed up by other offers. So if somebody else is offering up to $305,000, you could possibly win that property at
$306,000 if your increments go up by 1,000.
Got it. And then they've got some type of cap or something that they're willing to go to a certain amount, so it protects them. So why would somebody not, knowing that there's a multiple offer scenario, because they have to provide that competing offer, correct?
Yes.
So they know that there really was a true offer out there. So why would you not do an escalation clause?
That's a good question. Some listing agents won't allow them. They'll say, you know what, no escalation clauses.
Really?
Yep.
Because they just don't want to play that game, or what?
No, because sometimes, if you have a buyer willing to go up to $315,000,
Yes.
that'll be their highest and best offer.
Okay.
So some listing agents will tell you, you know what, just give us your highest and best offers. So you might
Got
get
it.
an extra $8,000 or $10,000 by
Makes
not
total
allowing
sense.
it. So if it doesn't say they're not allowed, I'm going in with
Yeah.
an escalation clause.
Got it.
And I'll even try regardless.
Yes, exactly. That's awesome. What about an inspection? So for a buyer, you want to have a home inspection. You want to make sure that you know this big investment, if there's any major potential issues that are there or could be coming up in the future. So how are you coaching your buyers around the inspection process?
Well, I always recommend some kind of inspection on the property so the buyers know what to expect when they buy the property.
Yes.
And many times you can do the inspection after you're under contract with your seller.
Okay.
Sometimes in a multiple offer scenario, you have to do a pre-inspection.
Okay.
And what a pre-inspection is actually do an inspection before you make the offer. If your buyer is comfortable with what's found in the inspection, that's when you waive your inspection contingency.
Okay.
And that makes your offer look really strong to sellers.
Got it. Now, what about earnest money? Because there's a good faith deposit is what it is, and it's an earnest money that's being made out to an escrow company or the trust company with the real estate company. You're never making it out to the seller, ever. But so what advice do you have around the earnest money and how they should be utilizing that?
Well, I advise my customers that earnest money is a great way to make your offer look strong. Mm-hmm. And if you have good credit and you're like 99 to 100% sure that nothing's going to go wrong with the loan process, you can come in with 2, 3, 4% earnest money.
Okay.
Now that's 3 or 4% of the purchase price.
Yep.
And you won't lose that earnest money if the deal goes through.
So the higher your earnest money, the stronger your good faith deposit is the seller. Now, also, I know because we just had a client that we worked together that great strategy with them that always, necessarily the highest earnest money doesn't make the offer the strongest, but maybe you go in with a lower earnest money, and I'm stealing this because you just did. And I thought, wow, that's just brilliant. Maybe you go in with a lower earnest money just because you really don't know what might come up, what happens, but you waive your finance contingency, and then you've got, there's a small amount that you're willing to lose just in case something did happen.
Yeah, we were. I was working with a couple who found a real nice house, and the listing agent said that there was going to be quite some interest in the property. We made an offer right away, and we found out that no other offers came in, but my buyers were comfortable waiving the financing contingency. They thought that everything was going to go fine with financing. And we put in a 1% earnest money on that property. And the seller seemed to like it. They took our offer and they didn't counter it at all. So
Yep. That's awesome, Greg. And I want to thank you so much for the commitment that you have to our local real estate market, the commitment that you have to your clients and your buyers, because it's rough out there. And there's a really small percentage of realtors that are doing the volume in the market, which is huge. And then on top of it are actually passionate and really looking out for their clients. And I just thank you so much. And thank you for coming to studio and sharing your information with my listeners.
Thank you for having me, Tina.
And coming up next on the Money Hour, are you thinking of purchasing a luxury real estate in our greater Seattle area? If you are, you definitely need to have an expert in this arena. Lisa Schilling with John L. Scott right here at 1150 AM KKNW after the short break.